Same question I asked LJ to begin with. When you learned you had to leave the county, what were your thoughts? Were you grocery shopping as well? What were you do? What were you when that happened?
I don't even remember where I was, but I just remember it was all extremely quick because for hockey, our season wasn't announced until right around Christmas time.
Right.
And then we were told it almost happened simultaneously as the county was doing their restrictions and adding, the no contact sports. We were trying to figure out what our season was. So instead of LJ kind of being in a process, we were absolutely everything was being learned at the same time, for any of the hockey teams. And then, and it was a very quick turnaround from, Christmas to New Year's to getting everybody activated. And, everyone in hockey had that issue. We just had the added bonus of moving.
Right.
So it was a surprise. It was a bit of a surprise, but I think we were aware that our situation was going to be much different than everyone else's, including Canada's. Right, they're going to have their own. We knew that there was a lot of different structures going on since our sport plays across borders,
Yeah.
so that played a part. I wasn't terribly surprised it was Arizona. It could have been Vegas, Arizona, any of those places that were kind of open. I had a feeling it would be there. Ironically enough, LJ and I have known each other for years because she got to go back to her old building and my team got to go back to my old building because I worked for the Coyotes as well. So that was bizarre. We right away I reached out to Chadwick, who just joined the Coyotes and
Mhm.
unfortunately had just got to the desert to learn that not only did he have one job to learn, now he had two teams to take care of, and everything was different for him. So we got really fortunate, though. How it ended up shaking out for us is the league thought ahead for us a bit and knew that they were putting us in a bit of a strange situation moving. So our first 12, 13 games were on the road. So it ended up that we didn't lose any home dates, which was
Right.
good. But we were we were all on a long stretch at the beginning, and just Arizona was the hub for that. So that was kind of how
Okay.
that went down. Far as who could go, we had a very small group, so we could have one producer, video editor, same person, one social media manager, and basically the entire team with their equipment staff, and that was it. So I never even got a chance to go to Arizona. I was here the whole time, so we did everything very remotely, including media day and things like that, as lots of people, including the Niners, did as well. So everything was through Zoom. So obviously we set up nice cameras to an actual record system, but we were doing all the talking and all the communicating through Zoom. And I thought overall, using our partners at Zoom and working with their technology, obviously we'd used it before, but never in these kind of capacities. We learned some really fun ways to do things. One of the first challenges we had was on media day. We needed to do something with one of our equipment managers, or our equipment strength and conditioning coach, and he was supposed to break down some moves for our a Kaiser initiative and basically a workout program. Well, Zoom is great, but you're pretty far from the camera once you back up to get the whole body in there.
Right.
So that was a technical challenge where you got everything's bouncing off of walls. They're in a huge cavernous room at a hotel. So if you ever have that situation, earbuds are fantastic. Have them call in. So what we had our guy do is he called in on Zoom chat, but he also called in on his phone. He put his phone off camera and he was talking through the earbuds. So we were able to get great audio from back. And we literally thought of that as he was standing in an empty room going, we can't hear you well. And we just had to think of challenges. So luckily he had earbuds and luckily they worked and it went pretty well. But far as technology wise, because we didn't have to have any games on the road and we were really just doing our social media stuff and really trying to get
Mhm.
our media day done, we didn't have a lot of external, and we also didn't have a lot of space to travel on the team plane. Planes are much smaller in hockey than they are in the NFL because the body count is such a different size. So under the plane, there's not a whole lot of space. So we kept it pretty bare, and did the best we could. But with social media being there and a producer, we our social media team was running extra, and they worked really hard to get all the get our fans connected to us. They hadn't seen us in a long time because we missed bubble hockey. So now they're seeing us, but we're completely away from them. So we had to make sure that we reminded them, that we were back in action, and that we hope to be at SAP Center soon.
Hypothetical question, because it didn't happen, but if the team was to stay in California, how much harder do you think the job would have to be? What were some of the restrictions that you would probably have to deal with?
To be honest, it would have completely shut us down.
Yeah.
Because we're an indoor venue and the NHL had different protocols than the NFL and Santa Clara County, which LJ and I both had to deal with, which was extremely uh, reducing the size of anybody around anybody, really, even players to players. I mean, they had to be masked up in the locker room the entire time. They wanted only certain amount of guys on the ice for the beginning of training camp and stuff. So we almost had to have 2 different sets of practices and stuff like that. So really, it would have been pretty much impossible to do anything outside of Zoom calls with them.
Right.
So on some way, when it was announced we were leaving, in a little way, I mean, it was at least a happy, okay, we can get some production done.
Yeah.
We knew that once we got there, we'd have different restrictions. Although when we left, the county did tell us that we were under their county restrictions, even if we were in another county, because that county was fairly open. And if we wanted to get back, they did not want us gallivanting at restaurants and bars and everything else, because even the hotel we were at, the pool was packed. I mean, it was wide open. So everyone was, so my employees were basically confined to their hotel room and practice space because everything else around them was open. So they had to really tuck away.
Okay. In terms of getting content and access to the players, usually if you're home, like they're going back to their house or they're going back to their living quarters. But when you're in Arizona, you're kind of somewhat in the same area. What was it like working with the players on an off day after practice? Was there a tiering system in place where only a certain amount of people could communicate with them? And how did that process work of grabbing, like, I guess, footage, if you even could?
Yeah, we didn't do a whole lot of it. We did do some, obviously interviews and stuff like that were fine. Media availability after games or practices was fine. All basically done through DSLR to Zoom, basically. So we had at least some depth of field and we lit it and everything. But it was really restrictive. It was basically a PR member would text them in their hotel room, come on down. The room is empty. They would walk in from one side of the room. Our crew was way on the other side, basically. They sat down and then we did the thing. But the other good thing is if we did need to communicate with the players, we were in their bubble. So even when they got back to SAP Center, I was in the 2A group. So I was tested every day. I agree with Kyle's earlier thoughts. It is nice not to be tested anymore because that was a long adventure. But it was also nice once you got into the office and you knew everyone was tested, and in a 24-hour testing period, you felt, even though you're all masked up and everything, you felt at least safe enough to work with your employees, and we knew, kind of, how that was going. So once off the top, it was a little spaced out for our time with the players. Also, it's extremely busy time for them too, right? They're practicing a lot. They're trying to make the squad. And at the same time, they're driving all over the one-on-one loop to get to the ice den and all this stuff, and all that's new to them. So, it was, for them, I think it was a bit of a fish out of water experience. I think it gelled the team together. It definitely gelled all of us who work in production. I mean, all of us probably on this call worked with our buildings in a different way than we had ever done before, right? And have an appreciation for each other in a different light. So that was kind of a good thing too.